What's up, Gacha gang? Kawaii50 back with another FGO video, here to talk with you of one of the best friends we have ever had in FGO. One of the most indispensable people in our quest to save humanity. The absolutely magnificent Leonardo da Vinci. No, I said the real Da Vinci. Perfection. We're going to be going over all the important aspects of Da Vinci's kit, and if you summoned her, watch this video, and it helped you out, be sure to go ahead and like and subscribe. Otherwise, bad juju is coming your way. Alright, let's get started. Da Vinci's card setup is a caster deck if I ever saw one. A quick arts buster deck with an arts type noble phantasm. So she has the ability to arts brave chain on her own with the maximum amount of arts potential, and she can arts brave chain with her noble phantasm as well. So focusing on arts is definitely gonna be the way to go here. Her stats overall are solid with 14,259 HP and 10,598 attack. Her NP per hit is at a 0.54%, which, you know, that's alright, but when you tackle on the ability to Arts Brave Chain, whether you're using your Noble Phantasm or not, her NP gain ends up being pretty good. Star Absorption is a 50, which is fairly on the average for the caster class. It's not going to eat up all your stars, but if you want your stars ahead of Da Vinci as your main damage dealer, you're going to have a little bit of issue. Oh, and by the way, further affecting her arts supremacy is the fact that she has a passive 10% increase to her arts card effectiveness. Alright, let's talk about her first skill, Inherent Wisdom rank EX. This gives Da Vinci Guts, one time for 3 turns, has an 85% chance to increase her defense for 3 turns, and an 85% chance to increase her NP strength for 1 turn. Both of these bonuses are at a 30%. And unfortunately, this skill does have a huge problem associated with it. You see, a lot of these percent chance skills that you see nowadays, well, as you invest in the skill, the percent chance does end up going up. But this is not the case with Da Vinci's skill. That 85% chance stays no matter what, and really the only way to get rid of it is if you have some sort of supporter that increases buff success chance. So solely because of that, I've really got to say that this is the least important skill of Da Vinci's 2 level. Now, this might have ended up being the most important one if it wasn't for that 85% chance, but I'm looking for 100% gang, so we gotta do that to be the most efficient. Da Vinci's second skill is Golden Rule Body rank B. This gives her 2 turns of debuff immunity, grants her 500 to 1000 HP every turn for 3 turns, and also increases her NP gauge by 10% every turn for 3 turns, and this is on a 6-turn cooldown. You can go ahead and level this second just by virtue of reducing the cooldown so you can get her those extra turns of debuff immunity. It's a shame that the NP gauge boost doesn't go up as you invest in the skill, but being able to get 30% NP over 3 turns, especially on an arts type servant, well, that's going to help you when it comes to spamming your Noble Phantasm. Da Vinci's final skill, Pioneer of the Stars rank EX, is easily her most important skill. This grants her a 30 to 50% NP steroid, gives her 3 turns to ignore invincibility on the enemy, which, remember, ignore invincible also pierces through evade, don't forget that. And it also grants 10 critical stars once. This becomes the most important thing to level. 50% NP steroids have become overwhelmingly important in this game, especially on JP when you've got the advent of servants like Castoria that can help you with your arts looping. So if you really want to future-proof your Da Vinci, even if you want your Da Vinci to be the most effective now without Castoria on NA, I've got to say you've got to sink all you can into this first. Even if anything, gang, you are getting 3 turns of Ignore Invincibility on a 6-turn cooldown. And that's pretty nice for challenge quests. Da Vinci's upgraded Noble Phantasm is Uomo Universale, the Universal Man. Now, when this got upgraded, its damage essentially became an NP2 of it pre-upgrade. So that 600 to 900% you're seeing, well, Da Vinci's deals that much if you have her at NP2 without this upgrade, so it was a pretty substantial damage increase. This ignores all of your enemy's defense ups, and it also decreases their critical rate by 30% for 3 turns, which is a very valuable debuff for challenge quests. The most important part of this Noble Phantasm, though, is the fact that it increases NP strength for 1 turn, that activates first, and the amount that buff gives you is completely based on overcharge. So if you are running an arts-heavy team, say you're using Tamamo's Noble Phantasm, Castoria's Noble Phantasm if you're on JP, you can easily line up all of those buff-related Noble Phantasms, slot Da Vinci's NP in last, and it is overall going to deal more damage than it would otherwise. That's pretty great. And plus, we can of course affect that with some craft essences. So when we're looking at craft essences to give Da Vinci, I believe the best things to focus on are NP gain, NP strength, and NP overcharge boost. I know some places like to focus on starting NP gauge as a great thing to give Da Vinci, and while I think that's fine, I think these other stats are far more important for her. Da Vinci has a very stacked art stack, so she's really going to benefit from that NP gain. Her NP is the main source for damage, so you want NP strength, and since a huge part of her NP strength boost is tied to overcharge level, giving her an overcharge boost is going to allow her to deal even more damage, completely subverting the 0.9% damage that the caster class naturally does. So as far as the best craft essence for her, I personally think Cute Orangeette is a stellar pick. I use this on my Abigail, who has NP gain problems, and it completely nullifies them. So for a servant that doesn't have them, this is really going to push them over to the edge when it comes to Art's Brave Chain. NP gain and NP strength, you can't really beat that for Da Vinci. With the Prisma Cosmos event on the horizon for NA at the time of this video, I can also recommend Magical Girl of Sapphire. If you're worried about not having starting NP gauge on Da Vinci, this does rectify that, and it also gives her a solid 25 to 30% NP gain boost to make sure she's able to use Uma Universale as much as possible. If you're content with the rate at which she's charging NP, maybe you've got some really good supports for her, you can always go ahead and give her the Black Grail. This is a massive NP strength increase at the cost of losing 500 HP per turn, but Da Vinci is actually able to refund that with her second skill. So this is not nearly as detrimental as it could be on a lot of other servants, though no matter what, the payoff is always worth it when it comes to the Black Grail. If you're looking for that overcharge bonus and you still want that starting NP gauge, you can go ahead and use Devilish Bodhisattva on Da Vinci. If you are doing a 3 NP chain with Da Vinci's Noble Phantasm at the last and you have Devilish Bodhisattva equipped, well gang, you are going to be able to benefit from the 500% charge bonus of her Noble Phantasm, which is a 70% increase to NP damage. I think that's definitely worth it. And finally, I do want to mention a craft essence slated to come out on NA around New Year's 2022. I know that's a little far in the future, but we always want to try and future-proof these videos so they stay relevant as long as possible. Anyways, the craft essence I want to mention is Spring Chord. This grants Arts Card Effectiveness, NP Gain, and also grants 2 levels of NP Overcharge once. Limit break this, and that Arts Card Effectiveness and NP Gain go up by an additional 5%. It's just really focused on giving Da Vinci everything she needs to be an effective damage dealer. Da Vinci is looking for allies that will do everything in their power to support her. Remember, she is the center of the attention. She is the greatest inventor of all time. So, of course, those allies need to be around there completely to support her. Of course, your optimal picks are going to be your Castoria or your Tamamo no Mai, granting that art support. But, of course, you can get some nice art support that's a little less harmful on your wallet if you, say, use Paracelsus von Hohenheim for a 3-star pick, or if you were lucky to get the 4-star pick, Castor Gilgamesh, who I've been using, and he is pretty great when it comes to that art support. If we are looking for a much more fancy way to play around with Da Vinci's NP, well, you can of course pair her with her Rider Incarnation. Pairing her with her Rider Incarnation grants her NP Strength and an NP Overcharge level boost, as well as a general NP Gauge boost, though I wouldn't necessarily recommend thinking at all that Da Vinci is going to be getting any of those stars in her caster form. They're just going to go straight to her rider form. You can of course always pair her with Nemo. Nemo does have the potential to grant NP strength and attack boost and some additional bonuses to attack and arts card effectiveness if you are near water or in imaginary space. So if that's an area that you are fighting in, well, you can pair them both together and it honestly wouldn't hurt. Of course, I want to recommend the ever popular Vritra. Pairing Vritra and Da Vinci together can provide some pretty good bonuses, namely because Vritra's Noble Phantasm decreases Arts Resist for all enemies over 3 turns, so you're going to help Da Vinci shore up some damage that way. Though, you know, you've got that class effectiveness thing to worry about, so you might only want to pair them together for maximum effectiveness against Berserker-type enemies, but I'm sure there are plenty of other ways you can make them work. Oh, and just one more servant recommendation after Vritra. Please, if you have summoned Prince of Lon Ling, do not forget about him. He is absolutely worth it in all possible ways, and he might honestly be the best supporter for Da Vinci, mainly because he is able to increase her buff success rate by 20 to 40%. So even at level 1 for his second skill, well, Da Vinci's gut skill is going to have a 100% chance to activate. Man, I love this guy. I'm not gonna lie, gang, command codes for Da Vinci were kind of a struggle to try and optimize. With only a star weight of 50, well, it's kinda difficult to justify throwing Crit Star Absorb on her, mainly because that's just going to give her, well, the average Saber's star weight, so stars are probably not gonna flow to her the way you'd like. But there are a couple of other command codes we can use to rectify the situation, and there is actually one command code I consider absolutely mandatory if you want to use Da Vinci at all. That mandatory command code would be the Mask of Concealed Beauty. This increases Da Vinci's buff success rate by 20% for one time over 2 turns when attacking using the engraved card. This means you use that card, and then the next turn, her very first skill is going to have a 100% chance to give her those bonuses you so desperately desire. That defense increase, and more importantly, that NP strength increase. This will increase her overall damage significantly for her Noble Phantasm, and if you really love Da Vinci, there is no reason she should not immediately get this command code the second you grab it. For one of Da Vinci's arts cards, I can recommend the Crest of Titan's Pit. This just increases NP generation rate by 5%. It's not much, but we're already throwing NP gain on her with craft essences, so any extra boost helps. You can also, of course, boost her Noble Phantasm by giving her Magus of Flowers. Once every 3 turns, this will charge her NP gauge by 10%. I'd recommend chucking this one on her Buster card, since that already doesn't generate a lot of NP anyways. No point in just giving a flat 10% boost to a card that generates Noble Phantasm. And finally, Da Vinci does benefit very well from the command codes that feature her on them. Da Vinci-chan will increase her NP damage by 15% for 1 turn when attacking using the engraved card, and everyone's Da Vinci-chan will increase the party's NP damage by 8% for 1 turn when attacking using the engraved card. Now, this does mean that you have to use these cards before you use the Noble Phantasm. This will overall amp up the damage, and you might be iffy about that boost, but that is going to be an over 20% boost to your Noble Phantasm damage that you can stack with that 30% from her first skill, which you've now made guaranteed to activate, and stack that with another boost that she gets from simply using her Noble Phantasm. This is the best way, in my opinion, to maximize her overall Noble Phantasm damage. If you want your Da Vinci to be an absolute monster, this is the way to go. Overall, my friends, I do consider Leonardo da Vinci a pretty good AoE caster. She does, of course, have some problems with her kit, but with the introduction of command codes, you can easily shore that up just by giving her a single command code. If you do that, she becomes overall more consistent, and her NP damage becomes surprisingly good. On top of that, if you don't even have the command code, you can use an ally if you were lucky enough in the gacha. There's plenty of 4-star tickets out there. You just have to make sure that you are building your entire team around Da Vinci. But if you are looking for a caster to be your main damage dealer, there are plenty of ways to make Da Vinci consistent and an invaluable part of your team. But I want to know what you all think, so let me know all your thoughts about Leonardo da Vinci down in the comments section below. Let me know if you think there's anything that I missed. If you summoned her, share that you summoned her so we can all revel in your success together. I love to hear stuff like that. If you want to talk some FGO, the Discord is always available. And as always, thank you to all of the patrons over on Patreon. You can go ahead and check that out as well in a link down below. I hope you all have a phenomenal day. I'll see you all in the next video.